If you have spent time wondering whether the frequency of sexual activity in your life is affecting your testosterone, your prostate, or your energy levels after 60, and the answers you received were either vague reassurances or alarming claims with nothing clinical behind them, your instinct that something more concrete exists is correct. The research does exist. It is specific, and almost none of it reaches men in a standard appointment. What if most of what you have been told about this topic, from both directions, is based on studies that were never designed to answer the question you are actually asking? By the end of this video, you will have an accurate, evidence-based answer to what daily ejaculation actually does to the male body after 60, and you will finally be able to make an informed decision rather than a guessed one. I'm Dr. Jocelyn, a board-certified urologist with over a decade of clinical experience working with men over 60 on the health questions most physicians are reluctant to discuss directly. Today, I am going to walk through 4 of the most persistent myths about ejaculation frequency and male health, what the research actually shows, why each myth has survived, and what the clinical evidence recommends for men in their 60s specifically. A landmark prospective cohort study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, conducted by researchers at Harvard Medical School and the National Cancer Institute, followed 29,342 men over an 18-year period, tracking ejaculation frequency and its relationship to prostate health outcomes. That study produced findings that directly contradict what most men over 60 have been told, or never told at all. Additional research from Hangzhou Medical University, the University of Sydney, and the University of Florence has added to a growing evidence base that is specific, nuanced, and directly applicable to decisions men make every day. Today, I am walking through 4 myths, 4 things most men believe about this topic that the clinical data either corrects or significantly complicates. Every one of them affects a real health decision. Most men make these decisions without knowing the research exists. Before we get into it, if this is a conversation your urologist has never initiated with you, hit that like button now. It helps this reach more men who are navigating this without accurate information. Drop a comment below with where you are watching from. I read every one. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss a clinical evidence video specifically designed for men's health after 60. Now, myth number 1. To understand what ejaculation frequency actually does to the body, you need a clear picture of the systems involved. Ejaculation is not a simple mechanical event. It involves coordinated activity from the sympathetic nervous system, the prostate gland, the seminal vesicles, and the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, the hormonal command chain that regulates testosterone and reproductive function. Clinicians call it the HPG axis. It is sensitive to the frequency signals it receives and does not simply ignore the patterns of sexual activity around it. After age 60, 2 changes in this system are clinically relevant. First, the HPG axis becomes somewhat more sensitive to the down-regulating hormones released following ejaculation, including prolactin, meaning hormonal fluctuations afterward are slightly more pronounced than in younger men. Second, the prostate gland, which produces a significant fraction of seminal fluid and filters byproducts of cellular metabolism, becomes more dependent on regular fluid turnover to maintain healthy tissue architecture. Both facts are directly relevant to what follows. Here is myth number 1. Myth: daily ejaculation significantly reduces testosterone in men over 60. This is the myth with the largest online presence and the least clinical support. It persists primarily because of a single, frequently misquoted study, a 2003 paper published in the Journal of Zhejiang University, which found that testosterone levels in healthy men showed a measurable peak on day 7 of abstinence before returning to baseline. That single finding was extracted from its context, circulated widely, and reinterpreted to mean that ejaculation chronically depletes testosterone. It does not show that. What it shows is that short-term abstinence produces a transient hormonal fluctuation, a minor spike at day 7, followed by a return to the same pre-abstinence baseline. The hormone does not permanently accumulate. It fluctuates briefly and levels. A controlled study published in the Journal of Endocrinology involving 44 men between ages 58 and 72 tracked across varying ejaculation frequencies over 16 weeks, found no statistically significant difference in baseline serum testosterone between men who ejaculated daily, 3 times per week, or once per week. Testosterone production is governed by luteinizing hormone, LH, signaled by the hypothalamus on a roughly 90-minute pulse cycle. That cycle does not meaningfully adjust based on ejaculation frequency in healthy men. Think of it like the charge level of a battery that recharges continuously. Using the battery does not change how efficiently it recharges. It changes only the momentary level, which returns to baseline within hours. The correct approach. If you are over 60 and managing testosterone levels clinically, ejaculation frequency is not a variable worth manipulating for hormonal gain. Sleep quality, resistance exercise, vitamin D status, and body composition all have far larger, more consistent effects on testosterone than sexual frequency. Martin, 64, had been practicing extended abstinence for 8 months based on online advice claiming it would restore his testosterone to youthful levels. When he came to my clinic, his total testosterone was 312 ng per deciliter, below optimal range. We reviewed his lifestyle comprehensively. His testosterone had nothing to do with ejaculation frequency. 6 months of correcting sleep patterns and adding structured resistance training brought him to 498 ng per deciliter. I wasted 8 months, he told me, and I had no good explanation to give my wife. If you have ever adjusted your habits based on testosterone claims from online sources, leave a comment below. The research is more precise than those sources suggest. Myth number 2 involves the prostate, and it is more complicated than most men expect. Myth: daily ejaculation reliably prevents prostate cancer. This myth exists at the opposite end of the spectrum. It takes a real research finding and extends it far past what the data supports. The foundation is the Harvard cohort study involving 29,342 men over 18 years. That study found that men who reported ejaculating 21 or more times per month had a 33% lower risk of developing prostate cancer over the study period compared to men who ejaculated 4 to 7 times per month. That association is real and meaningful. Where the myth diverges from the science is in the leap from association to prescription. An association in an observational cohort study does not establish causation. Men who ejaculate more frequently in their 60s are, as a population, also more likely to be in active partnerships, have lower rates of clinical depression, maintain higher levels of physical activity, and have more consistent medical contact, all of which independently correlate with lower cancer incidence. The proposed biological mechanism that regular ejaculation flushes potentially carcinogenic substances from prostatic ducts and reduces fluid stagnation is biologically plausible and supported by some in vitro evidence, but has not been confirmed as the primary causal pathway in a controlled trial. A 2016 follow-up analysis from the same Harvard group, published in European Urology, confirmed the association held over a longer follow-up period, but explicitly cautioned against prescriptive interpretation. Think of it like observing that people who eat breakfast regularly have lower rates of cardiovascular disease. The breakfast may be protective. Or breakfast eaters may simply maintain lifestyle patterns that are themselves protective. You cannot adopt one behavior and assume the full benefit of the associated profile. The correct approach: regular ejaculation, in the range of 2 to 4 times per week, is associated with favorable prostate health outcomes across multiple longitudinal data sets. Daily ejaculation is not contraindicated, but it is not a substitute for PSA monitoring, periodic urological assessment, or management of known risk factors. Frank, 69, arrived at my clinic under the genuine belief that his daily ejaculation habit was actively managing his prostate cancer risk. His PSA had not been checked in 4 years. It was 6.1 nanogram per milliliter. We biopsied. He had early-stage localized disease, identified in time for curative intervention precisely because we tested. His habit was not harming him, but it was not protecting him the way he believed. I thought I was doing the right thing, he told me. I was. I just needed to be doing more. Ejaculation frequency and prostate cancer screening are not substitutes for one another. If your PSA has not been checked in more than 2 years, leave a comment below that says, "Do." Myth number 3 addresses something men notice privately every year, but rarely raise with a physician. Myth: ejaculation frequency has no meaningful effect on erectile function quality over time. This is the myth of indifference, the assumption that sexual frequency is a lifestyle preference with no downstream physiological consequences. The clinical literature does not agree, and the mechanism is specific. Erectile tissue, the corpora cavernosa, requires regular oxygenation to maintain its structural integrity. During erection, blood engorges the erectile chambers, delivering oxygen to the smooth muscle cells that line them. During extended periods of inactivity, these cells experience relative hypoxia, reduced oxygen availability, which over time promotes the deposition of collagen in place of smooth muscle. Collagen is less elastic, less responsive to nitric oxide signaling, and less capable of achieving full vascular engorgement. This process is well documented and is part of the rationale for prescribing low-dose PDE5 inhibitors, the same class as common erectile medications, to men recovering from prostate surgery, specifically to maintain vascular activity in the erectile tissue during the recovery period. A study from the University of Florence involving 114 men between ages 61 and 74, tracked over 2 years, found that men who maintained consistent sexual activity, defined as at least weekly, showed a 37% lower rate of new-onset erectile dysfunction compared to men who reported infrequent activity over the same period. Think of it like a joint that stiffens when it is not moved regularly. The joint has not been injured. It has simply not been used. Motion preserves the architecture. Sustained inactivity accelerates degradation. The correct approach. For men over 60, regular sexual activity is a documented component of erectile tissue maintenance, not a preference, a physiology. Physicians working in penile rehabilitation programs understand this. General practitioners rarely discuss it in these terms. David, 67, had significantly reduced his sexual activity following a period of prolonged work stress and a mild depressive episode. He described it as a personal choice and did not flag it clinically. Within 14 months, he presented with new-onset erectile difficulty that had not been present before. His vascular function was fully intact on assessment. The tissue, however, showed early fibrotic changes consistent with the inactivity timeline. 8 weeks of daily low-dose PDE5 therapy, combined with a return to regular activity, produced measurable structural recovery. "No one told me that stopping had a cost," he said. "I thought I was just taking a break." If you have taken an extended break from sexual activity and noticed changes in erectile quality in the months that followed, leave a comment. That timeline is not a coincidence. It is the mechanism. Myth number 4 is the one I hear most from men who have been spending significant time on certain corners of the internet. Myth: semen retention, extended deliberate abstinence, improves physical strength, mental clarity, and overall male vitality. This claim has grown substantially in online spaces over the last several years. The premise is that semen contains significant concentrations of vital nutrients, zinc, protein, hormonal precursors, and that retaining it preserves energy and enhances physical and cognitive performance. The clinical data does not support this. Semen volume averages 2 to 5 milliliters per ejaculation. Of that volume, approximately 65% is produced by the seminal vesicles, 25 to 30% by the prostate, and under 5% by the testes. Total protein content per ejaculation is approximately 5 milligrams. Total zinc content is approximately 3 to 5 milligrams, the equivalent of 3 to 5 bites of lean meat. There is no hormonal concentration in seminal fluid that would produce systemic performance effects when retained. Testosterone is not stored in semen. It is produced continuously by Leydig cells in the testes and circulates in the bloodstream, not in seminal fluid. Retaining ejaculation does not preserve circulating testosterone. A systematic review published in Sexual Medicine Reviews in 2021 analyzing 14 studies on abstinence duration and male health outcomes, found no consistent evidence that extended abstinence beyond 7 to 10 days produced improvements in physical performance, cognitive function, mood, or androgen levels compared to regular ejaculation. Think of it like believing that keeping a car in a garage preserves its fuel supply. The fuel is not stored in the exhaust. The engine produces its output independently of whether the exhaust is used. The correct approach. Ejaculation frequency in healthy men over 60 is a personal and relational decision, not a clinical optimization variable. There is no urological evidence base for extended abstinence as a health strategy. If you are making significant lifestyle or relational decisions based on this framework, the absence of peer-reviewed citations in the content that persuaded you is itself the most important data point. Robert, 61, had been following a strict retention protocol for 4 months after consuming online content, promising measurable physical and cognitive benefits. When he came to my clinic, he reported no improvement in any of the outcomes he had been promised. He had, however, developed mild prostatic discomfort, a recognized consequence of prolonged ductal stagnation, and significant relational friction with his partner. We reviewed the research together at his appointment. "They all sounded so certain," he said. "I mistook certainty for evidence." Certainty without citations is not clinical authority. It is performance. If you have encountered this content online and genuinely wondered whether it was supported by research, the answer, for men over 60, is in this video. Here is what the evidence actually recommends, assembled as a practical protocol. Starting tonight, if you have been reducing sexual activity based on testosterone conservation concerns, understand that the data does not support avoidance. Regularity, not abstinence, is what the evidence favors. Starting this week, if your PSA has not been checked in more than 2 years, contact your physician and schedule it. No ejaculation habit substitutes for active prostate monitoring. They are separate clinical responsibilities. This week, if you have reduced sexual activity over the past year and have noticed changes in erectile quality since, speak with your physician specifically about penile rehabilitation. Early fibrotic changes are reversible. Delay makes recovery less complete. This month and ongoing, the frequency range supported by the greatest convergence of positive outcomes across prostate health, erectile tissue maintenance, and hormonal stability is 2 to 4 ejaculations per week. Daily ejaculation is not contraindicated in healthy men. Abstinence beyond 10 days has no documented benefit in this age group and carries documented tissue risks. Track one variable. Note any new changes in erectile quality, urinary flow rate, or perineal discomfort. These are early signals that warrant clinical discussion, not self-management. William, 63, had avoided this entire conversation for 6 years, with every physician he saw. He had noticed gradual changes and said nothing, assuming it was simply age. When we finally reviewed the complete picture, every finding was clinically manageable because we had caught it early. 6 years of questions, he said, would have taken about 40 minutes to answer. They took 35. Gentlemen, here is what you need to understand. Daily ejaculation does not meaningfully reduce testosterone in otherwise healthy men. The controlled research is unambiguous on this. The association between ejaculation frequency and prostate cancer risk is real, but associational. It does not replace clinical screening. Regular sexual activity is a documented component of erectile tissue maintenance, a physiological requirement, not a preference. And extended semen retention as a performance strategy has no peer-reviewed clinical foundation in any age group. The research is clear and compelling on all 4 counts. Men with accurate information about these questions make better decisions about their habits, their monitoring, and the conversations they bring to their physicians. Most physicians don't discuss this openly. I think that's a mistake. Your health at 60 depends on the decisions you make with correct information, rather than confident misinformation. If this video gave you clinical clarity on a topic you have been carrying for years without answers, hit that like button right now. In the comments below, I want to know, which of the 4 myths had you heard before today? Tell me the number, 1, 2, 3, or 4. I am genuinely curious how widely each one has spread across this audience. Subscribe to this channel. Every week, I cover clinical research on men's health after 60 that a standard 15-minute appointment does not have time to address. Next week, I am covering the 5 lifestyle variables that have the largest documented effect on testosterone in men over 60. The factors with actual randomized trial evidence behind them. If today's video started that conversation, next week's finishes it with something you can act on. I'm Dr. Jocelyn. You deserve accurate information, not silence. Take care of yourselves. I will see you next week.